Jai Jinendra, everyone. A warm welcome to our Jainism class, Tuesday evening class. Can't believe that we are nearly over on the first term. We started these classes in September, and we've got after this one more class before the Christmas break. It gives me great pleasure today to welcome one of our young rising stars. Also, he's been on the Jainism scene for many, many years, Dr. Mukul Bhai Shah. Mukul Bhai, if no one has heard of him, has done many talks for Ashwal, particularly brilliant with young children and explaining the theory and practical aspects of Jainism to young kids and adults alike. I've seen him in action many times, and very engaging speaker, and hope you guys all feel the same today as well. He's going to continue the topic of karma theory, which we've started 2 weeks ago with Dr. Ajit Bhai. Today, he's going to bring a different stance, different angle to the talk, bringing a lot more modern examples into there. So without further ado, without me taking up any more of your time, I'll pass you straight over to Mukul Bhai. Mukul Bhai, welcome this evening.
Pranam, Jai Jinendra બધાને. આપણે નવકાર મંત્રથી start કરીએ. Let's start with the નવકાર mantra, and then we can start if everyone closes their eyes. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayaryanam, Namo Vajayanam, Namo Loye Savasahunam. Eso Panchanamukaro Sava Pava Panasano Mangalanancha Savvesim Padhamam Havai Mangalam Uvasagaharam Pasam Vandami Kamaganamukam Visahara Visaninasam Mangal Kalnana Vasam Visahara Pulingamantam Kanthe Dharejo Sayamanuo Tasagaharogamari Duthajarajanti Uvasamam Chittha dure manto tujja pranamo vibahu palohoi naratiriyesu vijiva pavanti na dukha dogacham tuvasamate ladhe chintamani kapapayeva bhiye pavanti avighenam jivayara manam thanam yasantu amahayassa bhati bharani bharena hiena tadev dijya bohim Bhavve bhavve pas jina chanda. Pranam, Jai Jinendra, everybody. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna share my screen, and then I'm gonna start with just going over a couple of things that my father talked about. Nepachi apre thoruk alag examples bhi lesu. So. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah. Do you want to go on slideshow? Yeah.
Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. So, karma is not just mentioned in Jainism. Everybody talks about karma. They say, oh, that's in common language. They say that's his karma. Or in our language, people say, "Ena karma eva hase, inu life joke etlu kharab che ne am che." We hear the term karma both in a negative and a positive sense in so many different situations, and it's behind everything that comes up in life. And actually understanding karma is one of the deep secrets of our faith and our philosophy of Jainism. And having made a study of even other faiths, Hinduism, other Eastern faiths that talk about karma, I would say Jainism has the most in-depth and the most detailed overview of karma that you can find, and we know what comes around goes around, and it philosophically explains situations in the world. And And it's actually a secret to happiness in all circumstances of life, which we'll talk a bit more about. So my dad, Dr. Ajit Pai, talked about causes of karmic bondage in, I think, 2 lessons ago. He talked about these 5 causes: mithyatva, or ignorance, which has colored our soul since time immemorial; avirti, which is vowlessness; pramad, which is not being careful, negligence; kashais, the word kash-ai. Kash is sansar, or the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And I is anything that increases it. So we know about the 4 main ones: anger, greed, ego, and deceit. And each of these 4 have 4 different intensities, which makes 16. And then there's another 9, which like laughter, jealousy. There's others which one can explore when one goes deeper into karma. And yoga, are the actions of the mind, speech, and the body. And each time we bind karma, there's varying intensities, and these have specific names. I won't take the scriptural and specific names, Hamra, but we can say loose, tight, tighter, and tightest. And I have some slides later on to illustrate this. Panapre philosophy ma jayene, ipela. I'd like to start actually with a couple of stories which I feel really twist how we think about things on its head. And I think this is where all the reading that we do, Aprevanche, Karma Sutra, Apresamparya, where does it make a difference to a deepest extent in our life is when we apply it. There's many amazing literature, Jain literature. And I want to take a few stories from some of these. This book, Chess of Karma, is written by Acharya Ajit Shekhar Suryasurji Maharaj Sahib, who I had the good fortune of meeting a few years ago when I went to India and spent time with various different, many different Acharya Maharajas and Sadhvijis. And he gave me this book. And a lot of these books are quite hard to find, but there's one particular story in there which I find really moving. And I'd like to share it, Ajay. So there was a father who went to a learned Acharya Maharaj. Then Acharya Maharaj ne kidhu, can someone be an angel and a demon at the same time? Ekaj vyakti Rakshas bhi છે અને Dev bhi છે. The Acharya Maharaj said, clarify, please, and I can try and help you. The man gained a bit of confidence, and he said, well, Maharaj said, I have 2 sons. And when the first son was born, the mother, my wife, showered him with love. Inamate sunakare. She forsakes her own comforts for his happiness. Whether it's time, giving the best things, she's the perfect mother for him. But then, after some years, we had a second son. And she's like a demon. She's like a devil to the second son. Ene kijai, eno kai wak be na hoy. Ubatu sambre maru ne emna maminu. Born in a tapak male, he gets locked in his room. He is excluded from family gatherings. He's beaten. He's given all the chores. And despite this, he listens. He doesn't retaliate. But she keeps mistreating him. And I can't bear to see this. And I don't understand, because otherwise she's so good to people, especially my oldest son. And I can't understand how can the same woman be an angel and a demon? Acharya Maharaj, at that time, he was an Acharya Maharaj who had a deeper knowledge. They could see back far in the past. He applied his knowledge. Nemne Kidhu. Your two sons, many lifetimes ago, they were two brothers again. They bhayu hata. And they were traveling down a road in a chariot. As they were traveling down this road, far away, they saw a bird that couldn't fly, but was walking. The older brother said, we should slow down. A pakshi છે ને કચરાઈ જશે, ને લાગી જશે. The younger brother said, the rules of the road don't say we have to slow down for an animal. The animal will get out of the way. We're in a rush. We have to go fast. Older brother retaliated. The rules of the road may not say that, but the rules of life say that we should look after all those others, and especially those who are weaker than us. The younger brother made sure he came out on top and made sure that they went fast. Unfortunately, Emma, Apakshi, kachrai gayi. The older brother felt so bad. He immediately got down from the chariot and he thought, even if this bird is close to losing its life, in a cheli gadiye, when it's samadhi maranapu, when nauka mantra gawa in mate, in the atmane shanti wale, and get some peace in its last moments. He gave solace to the bird, recited prayer, and that bird passed away. Many lifetimes afterwards, this bird was reborn as the mother, Mahati, and two sons, the two brothers, were born as her two sons. One son, Jemna mate atyant rag hato, an attachment for one son, a love. And the other son, just seeing his face, dvesh hato, hatred. And all sansar moves forward on these two, rag and dvesh, attachment and aversion. Sometimes we may meet someone, we may see someone, we may see a situation. Our knowledge is not developed enough to recall our past lives. કારણ કે આપણે કોઈને જાતિ સ્મરણ જ્ઞાન નથી. જાતિ સ્મરણ જ્ઞાન is the knowledge to see our previous lives. We can't see behind that curtain. But through all the eventualities in our lives, through the thoughts we have, through what happens, we realize and we understand that there must be something behind that curtain. Just that our knowledge is not developed enough to see that. The saint, the Sadhu Maharaj, said this was the previous life story of these two brothers. The father experienced a wave of peace, and he explained all of this to the younger son, who could have gone completely the wrong way with all of these situations in life. But this whole story completely transformed his way of thinking. He spent more and more time in the company of Sadhu Sant, and didn't continue the cycle of revenge and ended it in that life through higher knowledge. You may be surprised to know that this whole story is actually also found in the Jain Mahabharata. And it is a story of many, many lifetimes before actual story of Krishna and Balram. And a short excerpt from this story is related in this book, Chess of Karma. It's not just our Jain literature we can turn to find evidence for all of this. If any of you would like to, this is a more easily available book. There's a Western book called The Power Within by Alexander Kane. It's on hypnotherapy, but it studies the past lives of over 1,000 people based on hypnotic trances and stage 7 hypnosis, which is the highest level of hypnotherapy. And through regression analysis, they found, they talk about this, about future births being dependent on the way that this life is led. And if you want to explore science and other things, there's quite a few other things we can talk about. For example, arachnophobia, fear of heights, claustrophobia, all of these phobias, if you look into the reasoning and the explanation behind a lot of phobias, karan શું છે કોઈ પૂર્વભવમાં આપણે સાપને હિસાબે આપણું મોત થઈ ગયું હોય, we've died at the hands of a snake, or we've fallen from a height, or there's an example of within this hypnotherapy, someone who was really, really scared of water. And through this regression analysis, they found that many, many thousands of years ago in the Roman times, this person was sentenced to death by drowning. And hence for many, many lifetimes, Pachi as sanskar, they had a deep fear of water, of drowning. So this is another sort of, through understanding the proofs of reincarnation, and the aim of understanding all of these proofs is to strengthen our belief. Because jetlo karma ma shraddha hase ne, etlo apna life ma apply karso. Karma ma shraddha nahi hoy ne, then we will lie, cheat, and steal, and do whatever in this life because we think it is in our own interest. Because each person, whether it's a saint or a sinner, sadhu hoy ke chor hoy, everyone is searching for happiness. It's just that some people have added together the part of the equation behind the curtain and the part of the equation on this side of the curtain. But the vast majority only see 1% of things, whereas a very, very small minority see the 99% behind the curtain. And understanding religion is more about finding the actual answer to happiness. Because JJ Pap Karsu ne JJ em lagse ke apne hoshiyar che. So Emma apne actually ghana ocha hoshiyar che. And je bhora lage, pani fere ghana vathare hoshiyar kai sakai. Many of you may have heard about Anne Frank and Barbara Carlin, which is the diary of Anne Frank. Emma vat કરે છે કે એમનું આવતા ભાવ એનું reincarnation થયું અને જે આટલી બધી વસ્તુ છે એ યાદ કરે છે. She remembers, which couldn't have possibly been remembered unless you believe in reincarnation. So that's another interesting book to read about. And there's this book, Hidden Teaching Beyond Yoga, which explores Buddhism and Hinduism and karma, and comes to the same conclusion as we do in Jainism, albeit just in a slightly less detailed way. So, revising some of the things that my father, my dad talked about, એમને 9 તત્વની વાત કરી 2 weeks ago. The 9 wheels in Jain philosophy. Jeev che, that's living entities. Ajeev, non-sentient entities. Punya che, pap che, virtues and sins. Ashra, there's an inflow of karmic particles to the soul. Band, there's a binding. Samvar, there's a stopping. Nirjara, or a falling away. And moksha, or salvation. So 4 of these 9 reals are related to karma. And actually, truly understanding karma helps us so much in applying our religion. And it's actually a physical particle. It's just so small. There's a whole subject of Jain physics where the nature of these particles. We talked today about atoms and subatoms, and science keeps discovering smaller and smaller particles. But science hasn't yet gone as far as to discover the Parmanu and the really small, minute particles, which maybe one day my dad will talk in more detail about, because he's got quite a detailed knowledge of this. So let's take a metaphor. You have a magnet and it attracts iron filings. Out of these 9 tattvas or 9 reals, Samvar is an insulation that stops these filings joining. Band is the binding of these filings. Nirjara is the shedding. And Rag and Dvesh, or attachment and aversion, are like the magnetic force, which keeps binding these particles to us, which then exert a physical negative, positive effect on us through these 5 causes of karmic bondage. Before we move on to the next sort of part of this, it's 8:20, so why don't we take 5 minutes of questions, and then I'll carry on with a few more metaphors and a few more stories. To koi na kai question hoya stage, so please do ask.
We don't have any questions yet, I think.
Okay, so let's carry on. Let me give you a visual example. Okay, intensity of karmic bondage. The first intensity, krodh, man, maya, nelobh. Anger, pride, deceit, and greed. These 4 are known as kashais. And each of them, as we said, has 4 different subcategories. And these are within the classification of Mohaniya karma. My dad probably talked about the 8 different types of 8 broad categories of karma, and how Mohaniya karma is the ringleader of all the karmas, and the most dangerous. And later on, I've got 8 metaphors which can help simplify the understanding of what these 8 karmas are and how we can think about them. But Mohaniya karma is by far the most dangerous, because it changes the way you think and colors your perception. If you get pain, you can still have spiritual thoughts, and you can, through your higher mind, overcome that pain. Vedniya karma hoy, ne dukh hoy, to be under ma sukh hoy sake. When Mohaniya karma chene, it's like, I'll show you a picture afterwards for the example, but it's like daru. Alcohol is a metaphor. It just changes the way of thinking. And you become someone different when you're under the influence of this. And it includes mithyatva, which is a false perception of situations, of things. So let's take the example of anger as one of the 4 kashais. So the first intensity of anger, known as sanjolan, is like a line through water. It's formed and it goes away quickly. Kalak mate krodh lage, ane mane am kairu, ekdam shant thai jai. Gusso aave, gusso shant thai jai. Forgiven, forgotten, it's all finished. Nothing is held on. Second intensity of anger is like a line through sand. Krodh have, કદાચ દિવસ માટે કે વધારે અઠવાડિયા, મહિનો, 4 મહિનો માટે યાદ આવે, પછી ભૂલાઈ જાય. It's a bit more difficult to get rid of. And each of these stop different levels. I can't remember exactly, but say I think the second intensity or the first intensity stops someone taking diksha, becoming a bunch of Mahabharata sadhu ke sadhvi. The third intensity of anger is like a line through soil, hard soil, not soft. Apre darvash paryushan ne pratikaman ma michami dugdam kayecha. અને પ્રતિક્રમણમાં આપણે ખાસ આપણા પાપની મિચ્છામી દુક્કડમ પ્રાયશ્ચિત માંગીએ છીએ અને ખાસ આપણે જે કોઈ સાથે વેર થયું હોય, we've had problems with anybody, we make a point to seek forgiveness, because if anger lasts beyond a year, and we see this in many families, that there might be two brothers or an uncle and niece, or where they don't talk to each other anymore. In families, in communities, and nobody's at fault in these things. It's the nature of sansar. A sansar dukhmai, dukh falak, dukhanubandhak che. Dukh vadhare che, ane sukh ochu che. And karma atli badi shakti che, which can make us go completely the wrong direction and find fault in people. But the biggest fault is in our karma. And karma થી એક જ વસ્તુ વધારે શક્તિશાળી છે, એ છે dharma. And if this line through soil is not, the anger is not stopped at that level, becomes anantanubandhi krodh, anantanubandhi man, anantanubandhi maya, anantanubandhi lobh. Like a line through rock. That nothing can stop it, and this can be a cause for naraknu ayusha, which is a hellish existence as well, depending on how severe that is. And there's plenty of examples in Jain literature. My dad may have mentioned Samraditya Kevli Charitra, which is a 3-part book, 500 pages each one. It's Gujarati Majmale, but they say that if you read that book from cover to cover, you can't help but have vairagya, because you see the real nature of sansar. Yeah, sansar suche and dharma suche, and your priorities will just go in that direction of dharma. Let's take a slightly side topic related to karma, which my dad also touched on, and which actually, when I was preparing to do this class, I had a brief chat with Shandip uncle, and I said I'd cover a bit of this as well, because I think it's a common thing that people sometimes talk about, and sometimes karma is taken in a negative sense. Yeah, someone's disabled. In a karma eva hase, emne am too. Yeah, it sometimes makes a defeatist attitude. Yeah, મને કઈ સારું થાતું નથી, મારા કર્મ એવા છે, એટલે why should I make an effort? જે થવાનું હશે એ થશે. Which is not what Jainism says. Not what Anekanta, one of the core principles of Jainism, says. And sometimes it's when people have slightly misunderstood the concept of karma. And to understand this, we can take the Panch Samavay, or Karan Karya, or cause and effect. Any effect is contributed to by 5 different causes, of which karma is one, but not the only one, and perhaps not even the most powerful. Kal, time. Currently we're in Panchma Aro, we're in Kali Yuga, and we're in a descending cycle of time. And they say, at this point in time, dharma ocho malse and a sansar vatari hase. Not just time in that sense, though. Also the time of day, the vibrations in the atmosphere. We try to find shubh murats, good times for certain things, because there are certain times people listen to Bhaktamar Stotra at a certain time in the morning, because the vibrations the effect that nature has on you at that time is that much more positive. Swabhav, the intrinsic nature of a person. I've got some specific pictures for these, which I'll talk about all of them in more detail with the pictures. Karma, which the whole topic of all of this is about. Purusharth, effort. I would say Purusharth is probably the most important because it's the one factor that's completely under our control. Niyati, very, very rare, unchangeable karmas called nikachit karma, which are bound with such an intensity, they have to be suffered. Again, very, very few of these. Let's give a metaphor for time. This example, Asadviji related Suratma, she was talking about this, that how a mango ke paripak ke e vastu nu paripak thai. So sometimes people will not understand a certain message or go in a certain direction until that mango is ripe enough and ready to fall. That sometimes that effect of time to ripen that mango is required for that person or that situation to be in that frame of mind to even begin to understand that message. And that's the effect of time. If you go deep into Jain philosophy, you can talk about Akkam Nirjara and the trees and the plants and within the 8.4 millions of species of life, how slowly they get to a stage of more senses and towards evolution of the soul. So that's Kal. Swabhav. Even if all the conditions are right, sticking with the gardening and the mango metaphor, some trees won't sprout mangoes, even if they have Darko male, Warshad male, right soil male. There are some trees that despite having all the right situation, the mango won't grow. Similarly, there's an intrinsic nature that very, very few, but some people, despite all the good conditions, they may not make use of them. Dharma is for the 98% of people. 1% are like a lotus in muddy water. No matter how bad their environment, their situation, no matter how bad the environment that they grow up in, if they go to the roughest school, they're raised in the ghettos, all the people around them are, I don't know, smoking, drinking, committing thefts, murdering, doing all sorts of bad things. In their family, you know, it's a broken home, all of this, but somehow they still manage to be the most upright, nicest people. Very, very few. That's that 1%. You know, that for them, એ લોકોનો સ્વભાવ એટલું સારું છે કે even ધર્મ વગર એ લોકો ઉપર પહોંચી જાય છે because of the intrinsic nature. 1% of people are the opposite. No matter how good the environment, how good the surrounding, bagarse ne bagarse. The reason dharma is there is 98% of jiv are what we call nimitadhin. Shubh nimitma, એ લોકો શુભ વિચારશે. ખરાબ નિમિત્તમાં ખરાબ વિચારશે. Which is why the company we keep is so important. આપણે દેરાસરમાં હશું. આપણે અત્યારના સ્વાધ્યાય કરીએ છીએ. આપણે પાલિતાણા જાશું ઇન્ડિયામાં. આપણે કોઈ સાધુ સાધ્વી ના ચરણમાં હશું. તો સારા વિચાર આવશે. પણ પછી આપણે બીજે ક્યાંય જાશું. એવી કંપનીમાં હશું. એવા વિચાર બી આવશે. આપણી આત્માને નુકસાન કરે. Why? Because આપણે નિમિત્તાધીન છે. And hence people say કે આ ઘણી વાર સાંભળ્યું હોય બધું તો કેમ પાછું સાંભળીએ, પાછું રિવાઇઝ કરીએ, કારણ કે આપણે ભૂલી જઈએ. And it's not knowing. that's important, but imbibing within ourselves. And repetition is the key to imbibing. And today we've got the human life. Aaj apne manushya jivan che, એટલે આપણે એ ઉચ્ચા શક્તિ વિચારવાની શક્તિ છે. But કાલે આપણે ધીરજ ગતિનું આયુષ્ય બંધ થાય, we become an animal, then we won't have this higher mind. Will depend on our sanskars. And જો આ મનુષ્ય ભાવમાં એટલા સારા સંસ્કાર બાંધા હોય તો પાછો મનુષ્ય ભાવ મળશે કે દેવલોક મળશે. But જો આ મનુષ્ય ભાવમાં ખરાબ સંસ્કાર બાંધા, ક્રોધના, માનના, માયાના, લોભના, આપણે લાગે છે કે માયા કરીએ છીએ, લોકોને ચીટ કરીએ છીએ, કોઈકને વધારે કામ આપીએ છીએ and we're getting away with it. Maybe for 20, 30, 40, 50, 70, 80 years. But the divine economics, the divine maths, where things work on compound interest, as we learn about in economics and studies of the stock market, mean that we think we're cheating the world, but really, most of all, we're cheating ourselves. And that's just a little bit about nimitadin and situations. There's two wolves that are fighting. Someone asks, which one will win? The one that's stronger. Here comes the paradox between destiny and effort. Destiny, we can say, is our previous karma, pap ne punya. And effort is our purushat. There might be someone who's studying for the GCSEs or A-level or for an ACCA exam or any other exam. And in 1 hour of studying, they gain the same knowledge as someone else who takes 10 hours to study. Maybe that person who takes 10 hours to study in their previous life, etlu vadhare gnana varne karma baindhu, and etlu badhu vadhare lesson kare. And ajan 1 kalaknu lesson kare, ne olo jana 20 kalaknu lesson kare. It's still possible that because of the destiny being so powerful from the past, this wolf of effort in this life needs to be fed 20 times more to be stronger. But they can still become stronger. And most of the time, the balance isn't that skewed. It'll probably be a bit closer. And hence, we can control our effort, but then we can let go of our expectations. And our joy should be in putting in that effort to the utmost of our ability, and then letting go or letting God deal with the circumstance with glad acceptance. And that's where we apply anekanta to the theory of karma, to the, not the theory, the law of karma, and marry the two. Hard work will never betray you. The Purushat is the karma of the present. Purushat of the present is the karma of the future. And Purushat of the past is the karma of the present. And if we continue to put in self-effort, our destiny will improve. Many times, sansaric success is perhaps more influenced by our past karma. And spiritual progress and inner peace, which is the more important one, is often more under our control in this life. That whatever the situation comes, we can steady ourselves. In the Bible, they have a saying, God, grant me not that I have a lighter load on my back, but make my back stronger so I can carry any load that comes upon me. And that's what we can really develop in this life. Shakespeare's Tempest talks about nature versus nurture. It doesn't really have an answer, nor does sociological science. In our Jain philosophy, the laws of karma give us an answer that the rest of the world is still searching for. And we talked earlier about niyati, or very, very few karmas which are bound as nikachit. And there's many examples in the Jain literature about this. There's an example from the life of King Shrenik, who was a disciple of Mahavir Bhagwan. And he's going to be a future Tirthankar. And there's some other examples. I think my dad talked about the example of the coward who put nails through the ears of Bhagwan Mahavir. I may be wrong, but I believe that was a nikachit karma that had to be suffered. And if those things can affect even Bhagwan, then who are we? It's very rare karmas. And I may be wrong. I need to just double check if that was a nikachit karma or not. And as per Anikanta, the whole truth can only be understood all five are considered. And I hope that provides an answer to that dilemma many people sometimes have. Even Jyotish or astrology is simply learning to read the hidden language of our vibrations from yesterday, which is our karma, and affect our today. But it's a science of reading signs in the environment rather than any supernatural thing. So if we understand Jainism, we can understand many of these allied sciences, science itself, many other things. That's why I say to so many people that we don't realize, but we've been born with one of the greatest treasures, that no matter any amount of wealth, any amount of power, any amount of anything else can defeat. The only thing is, we don't realize what a treasure we have, and what we have to make sure that we pass on to the next generation. Kodach korak ochaka masu ne toruk ochuelo kone makan ke malse to okeche pane kone jin shasan phulai jase sachi muri apra samaj apra badhamati vai jase. And this muri is something that the whole of the Western world is crying out for, searching for, and we just need to own it, and for ourselves, and there's so much in it for the whole world. Okay, let's pause for questions there, and then can talk a bit more.
I got two questions. Nick has just said, it sounds like karma is negative. Is that right?
No. So you can get good karma and bad karma. For example, even to become a Tirthankara, Tirthankar Nam Karma Che. That when that soul who's going to become a Tirthankara gets this utmost compassion for all life, to the most extreme sense, Jo hue mujhe shakti aisi, savi jeev karu shasan rasi. They bind Tirthankar Nam Karma, and that leads to them becoming a Tirthankara. So yes, eventually, karma needs to be gotten rid of. But let me give you an example, a metaphor that Palitanama. I asked the same question, and the Sadhu Maharaj, that was Yeshovidya Maharaj, is Rajratna Suraswati Maharaj said. He gave me this example. You've got a glass full of oil, dirty, oily glass. You try to wash it off with water, but nothing comes out. Hence, you take some soap. You scrub it with the soap. If you take the oil, you scrub it with the soap gets rid of the oil, and eventually, as you put more water in, the oil itself and the soap itself comes out. Similarly, you have pap, you have punya, and then you have a state without karma. So you have ashubh or bad, shubh or good, and then should or clean. So good deeds and punya, for the vast majority of us, are very, very important, because punya nahi kare to paap karsu. And if punya thi paap ochhu thase, paap dhowai jase, and as you get to a higher and higher spiritual state, shubh mati should thai jase. Does that answer that question? Or did I get the wrong angle of it? Then I can explain again.
I will let the person who asked the question come back to us in a bit. Whilst they do, the next question was, I have heard people say Bhagwan gave this life with all the ups and downs. Is this correct? Or is it our karmas that determine this life and the ups and downs of future lives? What is Bhagwan / Tirthankar's input?
Just repeat the question.
Okay, I'll sort of give it to you in two parts. I've heard people say Bhagwan gave us this life with all the ups and downs. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this correct? Or is it our karmas that determine what sort of life and future lives we get?
Okay. Fine. So yeah, very good question. I'm glad you asked it. What's the definition of God? The Tirthankar. Our soul, apra atma, anant bhav, infinite lives have been spent in Narak or hell, in Tiryant, the animal kingdom, Teokai, Vaokai, Vanaspatikai, fire, water, earth, Nigod, Kanmurma, Bateta, Gajar, Kanmur, in the smallest part, there's infinite life. Darwin's theory of evolution talks about the evolution of nature. Jainism applies the theory of evolution to an individual level. And apre aje manushya janma pamya che. The dharma che, that this Jainism, how does a Tirthankara help us? By giving us that which is a map out of this forest of life, death, and rebirth. The Tirthankar ni karuna ni hisabe kyank kaink apre je sachu ne saru che, that's where that originates from, and then it filters. And whether that's Jainism or any other faith, you know, apra Jainism ma ahimsa je che, emati, through many different dharmas and things, that concept is still there. Perhaps it's been diluted somewhere, somehow, through like Chinese whispers and through interpretation, where absolute non-violence has become non-violence to humans. But that goodness, in some form, still comes from, according to our belief as Jains, from Tirthankar. This human life, whether directly or indirectly, Tirthankar Sangh Shasan Staipu, but there's been countless acharyas, sadhus. Through them, you take the example of Marichi, the third life of Mahavir Bhagwan. You get the origination of Tridandik, the origins of Hinduism, and you can talk about from the Jain Ramayan at the time of Muniswarat Swami, how other, the origination of other faiths, other things. So anything that teaches good, in whether a diluted or a purer form, has come, according to us as Jains, from Tirthankar, directly or indirectly, and that in some form has been instrumental and important for us to do some good somewhere through that inspiration, directly or indirectly, to slowly get to this elevation of a human life, which is like a lottery ticket. If you look at ketla tiryanch che, manushya ma ketla garib che, starving che, It's very, very rare to be a human. And we must have done so much punya, so much good to get to this stage. We may have, we may have been sadhus, we may have done good deeds. We may have been gentle, and in some form, there would have been some influence of a Tirthankar in some way, directly or indirectly. So we still have to make that effort. So it's both us, and there's also a role for the compassion of a Tirthankar. There's a role for bhakti, a role for devotion of bhakti marg, of that beautiful feeling of devotion, which is key to Jainism. And that's one way to try to understand it. And for all of these questions, most of the time, the answer won't be completely one thing or the other, but it's trying to practically apply anekanta and see both sides or multiple sides of that coin, because often the answer is a bit of both.
Okay, thank you, Mukul bhai. Another question has come in. Can karma come to you as penance?
Penance is a way to bring forward the burning of karma. આપણે ઉપવાસ કરીએ, એકટાણું કરીએ, બિયાસનું કરીએ, એમાં શું કરીએ છીએ? The Jain philosophy, when you go deeper into the types of karma, you talk about nirjara, or shedding or burning of karma, you can talk about 6 cha bahya and cha abhyantar, or 6 outer and 6 inner ways to burn karma. These include the inner ways, the outer ways include tap, which is all forms of fasting, kaya klesh, which is forms of putting the body under mortification like we do under Chaityavandan, which is still the mind beyond that. The internal ones you can talk about pratikaman, alochna or repentance for anything bad that we've done. And often the inner ones can often even be more powerful. But penance, we often think upvas is just not eating. Upvas means to stay within oneself. Upmavas, under revanu, which doesn't just include the sense of taste, but it can include the sense of sight, of hearing, of smell, of withdrawing from the senses and going within, which is one of the higher stages of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra when they talk about yoga as well, pratyakyan. So penance, coming back to the question, penance is a way to burn karma, but not the only way. And it's a way of bringing forward that burning of karma that may, people say, naukashikairu, and 100 varash narakna ayushya vayagya. You might have heard that somewhere. Ratri bhojan tag kairu, atla varash narakna ayushya vayagya. Or there's a story, someone had sacked narak nupap and etlu vandan kairu marcham, and they were thinking such good things. And emati sakmi narak nupap, mati choti narak nupap tayu. So there's many examples, and penance is one of them. But to be careful to do it in the right frame of mind, without kashais, which can sometimes be counterproductive if it's done in the wrong way, which is illustrated in the story of Samadita Kevi Charitra and Gunsen and Agni Sharma. So tap is important, tap is good, and it's worth aiming for, to slowly advance in that, but bearing in mind other things as well.
Okay. I have one more question that has come through. Sorry, just to on that one that you have just explained. So basically what we are saying is penance is a way of getting rid of bad karma.
Yeah, or bringing forward the fruition of bad karma that may have really troubled us in a future life, almost inviting that discomfort now when we have a mind that can handle it with equanimity and with peace. we'll come to another example, but later on we can talk about the jailer, the book, and the life of Sita from the Jain Ramayana. But in their lives, there's, I would say, as well as penance, there's another way that perhaps arguably, depending on what you're able to do and what your state of mind is, can even be applied on a daily basis, where and there's so much to cover. I've got another sort of 20 slides about examples from this book, the jailer and Sita Sati and many things, but I know we're probably we won't have the time to cover most of that. But sahan karete sadhu, sahan shilta, and when we come across, and this is some of the other things I want to talk about, as well as upvas and penance, there's other things like when someone gives us a bad situation, give an example of a husband and a wife, and the husband feels that no matter what I do, my wife tells me off, controls me, doesn't let me do this, doesn't let me do that, doesn't let me look after my mum, or vice versa. The wife feels that of the husband. But in certain situations, sort of to be able to tolerate situations with glad acceptance and overcome them is one of the really powerful ways to burn karma as well. And of course, penance is another way, which many of us know about. But there's many ways to burn karma, and it's worth doing a deep study of this, so we can apply it throughout every hour, every second, every moment of our lives. We can actively think about these things, and that's when Jainism sort of sinks itself into our conscious and our subconscious in life.
Okay, last question from me. So it's a bit of a long one, but I'll try and get it to you. Is punya and pap not a division of karma, and are we born with both as a result of our past deeds?
Yeah, punya and pap. So we talk. We can talk about. So we probably won't have time to talk about it in detail, but we can talk about 8 different main types of karma. Gnana varniya, darshana varniya, antaray karma, mohaniya, vedniya. Now each of these have subcategories: positive and negative. The negative ones are pap, the positive ones are punya. To give you an example, Ayushya karma, which is the longevity karma, which is like a prison, which decides how long you're going to live, and it imprisons you in a certain period of time, in a certain life, in a certain body. Many of us have drawn the Satya and the Derasan, which shows the 4 gatis, or the 4 states of existence. These are the 4 Ayushya karmas. From that, Devlok and Manushya, or human, would be considered a manifestation of punya. Tiryansh, or animal kingdom, which includes plants and one-sense beings, and Nara, or hellish existence, would be considered a type of pap. So yes, pap and punya are a broad categorization to say positive and negative karma. And if you go into the karma philosophy, even in Karma Granth, it'll tell you different actions which lead to the binding of different karmas. For example, someone who takes ages to study for an exam and struggles, we know that one of the reasons for binding of Gnana karma is disrespecting teachers, putting your feet on books, reading while you're sitting on the toilet, many various things like that. But if you go deep into the, you can read about reasons of binding of pap and punya karma as well. What was the other part to that question? One was that, and there was another part as well.
Basically, they were asking, are we born with both punya and pap?
Yeah.
as a result of our past deeds.
Absolutely. So in life, most people aren't black and white. They do some good things, some bad things. And hence, not even most, everyone, I would say, will be born with a mixture. Because, yeah, in different proportions. But if someone did just good, it's very likely that they wouldn't be here for much longer and they'd probably be in moksha.
Thank you. I think that's the end of questions from me, and I don't think Mehul has any at the moment. We have a few more minutes if you want to continue with the slideshow.
Okay. Let me just there's a large classification of karma, which would require many lessons to go over. And I know my dad is going to slowly cover more and more of this. This graph shows some of that. But to give you some metaphors for the 8 main groups, Nanavarnya, or knowledge obscuring, of 5 types, can be considered like a blindfold. A blindfolded person cannot see. Intuition obscuring, or Darshanavarnya, like a watchman at the entrance of a king's palace that stops one going in to meet the king. The king being the right path, the right faith. Antray. You have a lot of wealth and money, but you have cancer, you have diabetes. Although you have all this money and all this wealth, you can't really enjoy it. You have the thing, but you can't. Or you really want to donate. And you have that money. But તમારા ઘરમાં એવું situation છે કે a family member is keeping close tabs and almost controlling your finances and stopping you doing that. A type of anti-karma. Mohaniya karma, which we talked about. As a drunk is not aware of what they're doing, stops you from seeing in a deeper sense than just a blindfold, right from wrong. Vednya, like a honey-dipped sword. That's pain, pleasure and pain, Vednya karma. Ayusha karma we talked about. There's 4 states of existence, 4 gatis, which we talked about. Body-giving karma, like a painter. This karma decides the different personalities, voices, pleasant appearance, senses. Gotra karma. Some pots are used for good things, others bad if you get born in a good or a bad family where your influence is good or bad. As you said, Mohaniya karma is the root of the tree and the rest are branches. So it's 9 o'clock. We're going to run out of time. I'm just going to show you a few of these slides and then we'll pick something to talk about. This slide talks about a metaphor, another metaphor of karma. This metaphor is from medicine. A virus will affect the body, but we cannot see the virus. But we know it's there because it causes a temperature in the body. In the same way, we cannot see karma, it's too small. But with the effects of karma, such as kashais, or anger, greed, ego, deceit, jealousy, lust, in different proportions, we know it's affecting the soul. Because you wouldn't get a temperature of 39 or 40 degrees if the virus wasn't in your body, or a bacteria. And it's the same with karma. The same way we don't see electricity, but by turning on the light, we know it's there. As you sow, so you shall reap. For the accountants here, if you go to the bank, you have credits and debits. You're happy when you build up your bank balance. So why not be happy even when bad situations come? Because if you face those bad situations with equanimity, then you're building up your savings, which will bear interest. Whereas when you have pleasant circumstances, people praise you. You have pleasant weather. You're using up your balance of punya, of good karma. And the thing is, most of us have come with so much punya in this world. Most of us are only using up our bank balance of punya. Very few of us are reinvesting that in building up a balance. And this life works in periods of mahadashas, in these periods of time, governed by our karma, which are seen through signs of nature as well, which a king can become a pauper can become a king. So when times are good, make hay while the sun shines. Man sadhu, tene sadhuru saguru sadhu. Anand Kanji, the great poet, saying, one who has attained discipline and self-control of the mind has attained everything. So don't worry about the outer situation and circumstances. Strengthen your inner muscles, your mind is even more important than your physical body. I'll ask Shandip Uncle to share a link to this book called Jailer, which I feel is a fantastic read. And I had a few stories from there to talk about, but we won't have the time to talk about them today. It's a metaphor. Think about situations in life. It's a metaphor which relates our life situations to a prisoner, a judge, and a jailer, and how to think about things to really rise above any situation in life. It's written by Maharaj Sahib, Acharya Maharaj, called Ajit Shekhar Maharaj Sahib, different from the author of the Checks of Karma. And talks about glad acceptance. And there's another book called On the Mind. I'll come to it. Written by Acharya Uday Vallabh Suryaji Maharaj Sahib, which talks about the power of the mind and how even illness and negative situations can be turned on their head, how you should philosophically think so you're happy in all situations and you help others in all situations. And this book, Perfecting Youth, gives the examples of Abraham Lincoln and JFK, and it provides further proof of karma with such severe coincidences that it couldn't happen by chance. If you Google about Abraham Lincoln and JFK, which were two presidents of the US separated by a century, you'll find a bit more examples of that. And in that same book, there's an example of the curious case of Ronald Opus, which talks about the manifestation of severe karma in this very life. And that's a famous legal case, which you can also read about. And then we've got our scriptures, which we can talk about many examples of karma. This story about Maru Bhagwan, my dad said it, I think last week or the week before, about the musician in the previous life, Maru Bhagwan, and the nails in the ears. Kanama khila thokya jare, hai vedana prabhuji ne bhare. Toya prabhuji shanta vichare, govaro no nahi vanka lagare. Din dukhiano tuche bedi, tuche taranaha, tara mahimano nahi pa. karma could even affect Mahavir Bhagwan. And he can face this with such bravery. Gives an example from his life to all of us. And with that example of Mahavir Bhagwan, we'll close today. If there's any final questions, you can ask in the last 5 minutes. Thank you, Bata.
Mukul Bhai, thank you so much for that really enthralling talk. And I'm sure, when we come to the live session in January, you will engage a lot more of the people in terms of a different way of looking at things. I think it was an excellent talk in terms of karma. I've got just a couple of questions or observations in terms of karma. How do you know what is the right thing to do to make your future a lot more positive? What kind of steps can you take, or where do you find out from? Or is it, going to the Maharaj Sahib and asking for advice, or, what?
I think, especially in this country, I think reading as much literature as we can is certainly a very good step that we can do, I would say, because there's so much of it. And I would say that if you feel confident enough in your faith and in your belief, then as well as Jain literature, I personally have felt that having analyzed things, my own belief and faith in the depth and the power of Jainism has been enhanced by reading allied and other things as well, and then trying to apply those things. I would say anything we read about, anything we do, to really engage that, it's good to try and apply that somewhere. Whether it's the karmas or whether it's the bhavnas, anitya bhavna, the impermanence of this world. So each topic of Jain philosophy has a very, very practical application in life, and that we want to do. So I think it's a combination of reading and applying Anekanta, because we will meet a variety of different teachers. Different people will come here to the UK, will go to India, and I think personally, my way has been that I'll try and dive deep into the Jain philosophy and sharpen my intellect with Anekanta and try to analyze things, go back to the reading that what is the definition of Guru Maharaj? What's the definition of what should I take from here? Go back to the philosophy, read a bit more, try to apply it, and use it as something that helps in every phase of life. Relationships, career, studies, because I think it's one of the most practical religions. If we just sort of dive deep into it. And I'd say when you have doubts, when you have queries, we have a lot of teachers here in the UK. We have people. There's lots of people in India as well. Which if anyone's going and they want contacts, I'm happy to get in touch with. We have many learned people who come. We have lots of things. Sometimes even things which are allied to Jainism, like people talk about people like Jay Shetty and others, which sometimes I think he's become a bit commercial now, but there's a lot of wisdom in a lot of these things which we can use to sort of understand our own philosophy and our own faith as well.
Are we overcomplicating our faith and karma? I'm just saying, living a simple, violence-free life, doing good.
I think very good question. I would say I'll give you an example, okay, about overcomplication. I think someone who's been born in a household where they eat meat all the time, to them, it's food.
Mm.
But through the light of knowledge, they understand that it causes so much pain. But in their eyes, they're not doing anything wrong. They're living a simple life. They're being good to their neighbor. But they're eating food where, every day so many animals are being slaughtered and it causes pain. So ignorance is not an excuse for पाप. And in the same way, अपना भगवान ने कहीं अपने आप्યું છે. કારણ કે remember, even from karma, the ringleader of all the karma is Mohaniya karma, which is rooted in mithyatva, ignorance. Because lack of perception and differentiation is the root of paap. Because in their eyes, anybody who's doing anything believes they're doing something for the greater good. Be that Adolf Hitler, be that Vladimir Putin. In their own heads, what did Hitler think? He thought that the Aryan race is the greatest, and in his head, the others were not counted as humans, and hence he justified everything that he did. But it's only the light of knowledge that sheds truth on reality. And yes, you can go too far down Gnan Marg and overcomplicate things, and you don't want to be one of those people who talks philosophy, who talks theory, but doesn't apply it. A metaphor I always like talking about is that of the blind man and the lame man, stuck in a hole and can't get out. But then they join forces. The lame man can see and the blind man can walk. We need action, but we also need knowledge.
Brilliant. On that note, Mukul Bhai, on behalf of all the students here on this course, and obviously there'll be lots more who will be catching up on YouTube during the week as well. Thank you so much for completely putting a different slant to the topic, bringing a lot of current examples and your knowledge of the books, the literature, etc. Incredible how much maturity you have at such a young age. It's fantastic, and it just, to me, it's very reassuring that our faith is in very good hands in the future. So congratulations on that. Thank you so much for this evening. And yes, I will send out on our WhatsApp shortly the PDF of the jailer book. But on behalf of everyone, thank you so much. And it would be great if you can just close on Manglik, if you can.
Hari Mangalam, Arihanta Mangalam, Siddha Mangalam, Sahu Mangalam, Kevali Pannato Dhammo Mangalam, Arihante Sharanam Pavajjami, Siddhe Sharanam Pavajjami, Sahu Sharanam Pavajjami, Kevali Pannatho Dhammo Sharanam Pavajjami, Arihante Loguttama, Siddha Loguttama, Sahu Loguttama, Kevali Pannatho Dhammo Loguttama, Arihante Sharanam Pavajjami, Siddhe Sharanam Pavajami, Sahu Sharanam Pavajami, Kevali Pannatho Dhammo Sharanam Pavajami.
Thank you very much, Mukul Bhai. Thank you all for joining this evening. Next week is the final session for this term, and then we will recommence after Christmas. Good night to all of you. Shubhratri. And if, again, we've done anything wrong or intentionally, unintentionally, Michami Dukuram to all of you. See you all next week. Good night. Thank you.